Aloha, beautiful lovelies, and welcome to today's video. So in today's video, I'm actually going over a test of bath bombs that I made, and I used a video from Kierra Zimmerman, and I will tag her page here. She has amazing content. I highly recommend checking her out. As a base for the recipe that I was using today, I definitely tweaked it so it's not a 100% one for one, but if you're looking for a good base place to start, I'd recommend following her tutorial in her video there. And if you want the specifics to how I tweaked it and adjusted my recipe, let me know, and I will create another video going more in depth to each step and why I use each ingredient that I do. But if you're here to see how one of these bad boys can turn into a volcano, then you're in for a treat. So if you're new to the channel, aloha, and if you're returning, thank you and welcome back. Go ahead and smash that like button down there for me and subscribe so that you can be first in the know for all 200 videos this year. So I'm Kierra from Urban Nomad and Kierra Unlimited, and this is my channel. Let's dive on in. Alrighty, beautiful lovelies, welcome to today's video. So I'm going over this bath bombs that I was making. So to start off, I'm just measuring out my baking soda for the recipe. I did split the recipe into two because I wanted to test out two different scents and end up doing a couple that were just that straight scent, and then one that was like a mix between the scents and the different coloring. So I am now adding in a little bit of base coloring, and in hindsight, you'll see a little later what I'm talking about. While it does make a difference, it didn't really matter based off of one of the ingredients that I use later on. It makes more of a tone difference than an actual like coloring difference. But what I'm using for the colorant for these bath bombs are mica powders. So I was using a blue in one and a yellow in the other. So now I'm adding my SLS, and what that is a bubbler. So it helps bring the beautiful, beautiful big bubbles to the bath bombs outside of the initial reaction of just the baking soda and the citric acid combining. So what you see now is me mixing in the kaolin clay, but this is not white kaolin clay. This is a rose kaolin clay. So because of that color, it's gonna affect it later on. And then what I'm measuring now are my oils. And what you'll see in my recipe is I use several oils and butters. So I'm using a mango butter as well as shea butter in these two beakers here. And I'm actually combining them separately. So one batch will have the shea butter and one batch would have the mango butter, but then it was going to get mixed up later on down the line. And then I'm also adding some avocado oil to this mix, which is a lighter oil. And what you'll see next after I finish doing the avocado oil is I'm adding in alcohol. So in some recipes you might see distilled water, and in others you'll see alcohol. I use the alcohol since it'll evaporate. And now I'm using the polysorbate 80, and what that is a binding agent. It helps the butters and oils emulsify together so that it's all cohesive. So what you see now is me adding in the fragrance oil. I am using two different ones since I wanted to test two different fragrances as well as do like a cool mix in the end. So all I'm doing now is really just mixing everything so it's incorporated well. Now that we have all those incorporated, I'm mixing up all of the dry ingredients that I've incorporated so far to make sure that it's all nicely incorporated. I didn't bring my KitchenAid upstairs. I do have a dedicated one for like my body care stuff, but I need to bring it upstairs. So I had this whisk attachment to my hand mixer that I use for making soap because it has a couple of different attachments. So I wanted to give it a shot. As you can see, dust went everywhere. So I wouldn't recommend it. I just ended up just stirring it. And now I'm mixing in all of the liquid ingredients. And I'm trying to do it all in one shot as easy as I can to try and minimize any activation of the baking soda. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just incorporating it in, making sure everything is all nice and evenly incorporated. Which brings us to, let's talk about PPE. So you can see that I'm wearing gloves. It's very important dealing with different agents and things like that to really protect your hands. And then in a few of the clips you kind of saw a glimpse of the mask that I'm wearing. So I choose to wear a mask pretty much when I'm making just about anything because I have asthma. But even if you don't have like that as an issue, I still recommend wearing it, especially when you're working with a lot of powdered agents. So like right now I'm adding in the citric acid, and between that, baking soda, and the SLS, there can go airborne really easily, and it can agitate your system, and that's something I wouldn't want you guys to go through. So please protect yourself, but especially if you see you're working with a very powdered agent. Alright, now we're moving on to the fun part of just doing that final mix to make sure everything is nice and incorporated and trying to get everything to a good texture that should be pliable, moldable, but can still kind of crumble apart if you press on it, you know. So that's the texture that I'm looking for here, and then we will get right into molding into the shapes. So now I'm working to add all of the mix into the mold. So I'm overfilling both sides just so that there is some space in between for the excess mixture to escape from the mold while it's being formed, and then pressing it in to place. So as you can see, when I was trying to demold it, they fell apart, and that was because the mixture wasn't actually where I needed it to be. The mixture was a little trickier this time around because the humidity in my room was actually super low. It was freezing cold, and while you don't want the humidity to be really like over 40%, it was like, I think it was at like at 5% in my room. Like I still needed you need some humidity. And if you don't have it, you can work around it. And the workaround is by adding a little more moisture to your mixture, and that'll help you form and keep your bath bombs in the form that you're wanting it, and so that they don't just crumble apart before it's time. So you see this brambleberry succulent mold that I'm working through. I was wanting to just experiment and see if I could get the bath bomb to form like within like just a silicone mold. And I don't have any results to show you at the end because I realized I wasn't filming when I was trying to demold them, but it just completely crumbled with the current recipe that I have. I do believe you can make it work and make it happen, and I'm planning on tweaking the recipe a bit so that I can try and figure out if I can make that work, because I really like those molds and I really was looking at a few other molds that I wanted to try too. And so if I can find a method that works really well that way, then I'll just let you guys know that too. Well, alright guys, so that was today's video. Thank you so much for staying tuned and tuning in each and every week. And what a crazy, crazy bath bomb experiment. I really, I really need to work on my duct perception situation so things like that don't continue to happen. But I'm really glad to know that this particular bath bomb is super reactive and it'll fizz really well in a larger tub format. I do have some molds coming through that are a little smaller so I can tailor them down to different sizes for different amounts of bubble aggression. So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to follow me on my socials, like and subscribe this video, and I will see you guys later. Bye.